everyone to tonight's meeting of the Burlington City Council on today, October 18th, 2016. I'd like to ask everyone to take a moment to please silence all electronic devices. This time we turn to Council Member Jim Butler for tonight's invocation.
Let us pray. Dear Lord, we thank you for this opportunity to gather as a group this evening to discuss the business of our city, the city of Burlington. Father, help us be mindful that our decisions should represent the interests of the entire city, not just the petitioners or those in this room or this council, but the entire city, and help us exercise our duties appropriately as elected officials in this event. We ask for your guidance in all matters before us as we look for knowledge and wisdom bestowed by you for the decisions that we make. Father, please be with the many people throughout our state that have lost loved ones and property in the recent hurricane and flooding. May their hearts be comforted by your presence. And most of all, we thank you for the promises that you have made us and the blessings you provide. In your name we pray. Amen.
This time we have recognition of some scouts. I understand we have some Boy Scouts from Troop 1 out of Grove Park Baptist. And if you would all mind standing. I understand the scout leader for the troop is Joe Giacaruso, and your senior patrol leader is Kyle Presley. Kyle's not with us.
Turned out that his brother had a concert at Williams, so Mom preempted his
Understand.
trip with us.
Well, wonderful. We appreciate having you here. This is an important part of civic engagement, and look forward to a good meeting. So thank you very much. You're welcome to stick around afterwards if you've got any questions for council. On that, now we recognize City Clerk Renee Ward.
Members of council, it's my responsibility to remind you of your duty to avoid conflicts of interest in matters that are before us. This time I ask if there are any potential conflicts concerning tonight's agenda items.
We have minutes before us from September 6th, 2016 City Council meeting, the October 3rd work session, and the October 4th City Council meeting. Do I hear a motion regarding these minutes?
Move. Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? This time we have the adoption of the agenda. Do I hear a motion regarding the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you. This moves us to our consent agenda. These items are typically non-controversial. If anyone has any questions about the following items, please let us know. Item A, to approve the following municipal records retention schedule amendments dated October 1st, 2016, and to authorize the mayor, city manager, and city clerk to execute the signature pages for submittal to the NC Division of Archives and History. Standard 6, emergency services and fire department records, and Standard 9, law enforcement records. Item B, to temporarily close Lexington Avenue from Davis Street to Maple Avenue on October 28, 2016, from 2 p.m. until 3:30 p.m. for the parade lineup during the downtown Halloween Spooktacular event. Item C, to reclassify the community development technician position, level 18 to level 20, effective upon council approval. And item D, budget amendment 2017-22, police RICO appropriations as spelled out in your agenda. Do I hear a motion from council regarding the consent agenda?
Make a motion we approve the consent agenda as written.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Consent agenda is passed. We have a number of public hearings this evening. Public hearing number 1, a public hearing has been set to consider the application to rezone from R15 Residential District to CB Conditional Business District for the use of a unified business development. The property is located at the southeast corner of Rural Retreat Road and University Drive, referenced as Alamance County Tax Identification Number 106858. This time, council recognizes Amy Nelson.
Thank you, and good evening, Mayor and Council. This request is for the development of a parcel at the intersection of Rural Retreat and University Drive. There have been 3 requests to rezone this parcel in the past, but this is the first under the new comprehensive plan, which designates this location as commercial, considering that this area has become a commercial corridor over the years. The project has been fully vetted by the city's Technical Review Committee. This rezoning request has the recommendation of staff. Planning and Zoning Commission voted unanimously to recommend the request to council. The commission found that the rezoning will not adversely affect the adjoining property, is in keeping with land uses already in the area, and that is consistent with the comprehensive land use plan. Mr. Henry Isaacson is here to speak to this request.
Welcome, Mr. Isaacson.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. My name is Henry Isaacson. I'm a practicing attorney. My office address is 804 Green Valley Road in Greensboro, 27408. With me this evening, as part of the legal team, are Mrs. Lindsay Locke, who's development manager. Would you just raise your hand? Thank you. Miss Ashley Peace, director of real estate, and Mr. Mike Kennedy, who's the senior manager of acquisitions. Also here with me are Mr. Adam Carroll with the Timmons Group. They're the engineers who did the engineering work on this case. Mr. Mayor, before getting into my presentation, I do have a business matter to take up with the council. I'd like to offer a new condition to be added to the zoning application.
Okay.
And I will hand these out to you and ask that you hand them out to your fellow councilmen.
All right.
Go back. I'm thinking about
He's got it.
This is really not substantial.
I believe it's proper that I offer this both in written form and verbally, so with your permission, I'll read this into the record.
Okay.
To add the following new condition to our zoning application. Developer will provide a 10-foot multi-use path along University Drive. Due to some physical constraints of the property, the multi-use path may be between 8 and 10 feet in certain areas. Developer will work with the city staff to maintain the 10-foot multi-use path to the extent possible. I would ask the council add that to the other conditions of our zoning application.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Mayor, I have another handout. With your permission, I'd like to come forth and ask you to hand it to your fellow council. So,
Lots of reading materials.
you have several other copies.
Thank you.
I direct your attention to the booklet that I've handed out. In tab number 1 is the zoning map prepared by the planning department. The subject property is outlined in red. I think you've seen this, but I call it to your attention because if you look at the vast amount of pink, which is conditional business, you can see that this property, which is the red triangle at the southeast corner of University Drive and Rural Retreat Road, outlined in red, it's in very close proximity to all of that conditional business property, which is across University Drive. And it's in very close proximity to the interchange for I-40, which is just south of this, of the subject property. And for your further use in identifying the property, if you'll turn over, I have a Google Earth aerial which shows you the same property again outlined in red. It's the red triangle. And you can see the shopping areas that are in very close proximity to the subject property, as well as I-40, which is the lower part of this photograph. I'll give you a moment just to look at this, if you like. Tab 2, this is a site plan prepared by the Timmons Group. That's the engineering firm that did all of the engineering on this case. It illustrates the location of the grocery store on the subject property, as well as one other building which would be for a retail user. And I would ask you to unfold that and take a look at it. It's like a lot of other site plans, it's got a lot of lines on it, and parking spaces and so forth. And for that reason, I asked Timmons if they would give me a colorized version, which is the second sheet of tab number 2. And you might like to look at that. See where the grocery store is located. That would be the Lidl grocery store. And then the retail building is below it to the left. There are 2 access points for the property. There's a right in, right out on University Drive, and there's a full movement access point on Rural Retreat Road. Talk more about transportation in just a moment. In any event, you can notice the landscaping, the buffers, trees, and there is quite a bit of additional landscaping up behind the grocery store. In tab number 3, I have an extract from the traffic impact analysis, and I have the traffic engineer here from Timmons who prepared that to answer any questions, specific questions that I can't answer that you might have in mind. But I call your attention to the second page of this tab under conclusions and recommendations, and would like to just read those into the record. Based on the operational analysis, the following is offered. The addition of site-generated traffic from the proposed development within the area has minimal impacts with respect to overall traffic operations. All signalized intersections and unsignalized intersection movements currently operate at acceptable levels of service and are projected to continue to operate at acceptable levels of service in the future, without or with the construction of the proposed development. So it appears that with the construction of these 2 buildings on this particular site, there would be no traffic issues, and the intersection that were studied, intersections that were studied in the traffic analysis will all operate at acceptable levels of service. And third page is just something for you to look at. That's the proposed site with the movements and the lane structure. In tab number 4, these are some photographs that I took not too long ago. You can see the foliage was on the trees, and the first one is looking toward the west. I was on Rural Retreat Road looking west toward University Drive. That's photograph number 1. And the subject property is over to the left. Photograph number 2 is just in the opposite direction. That is looking east on Rural Retreat Road, and thus the subject property that we're asking to be rezoned is on the right-hand side of that photograph. Photograph number 3 is a house and a mobile home that are on Rural Retreat Road, about halfway up the block, or perhaps a little less. And photograph number 4 is a picture of the Burlington City Park, the water tower in the background. Photograph number 5 are some apartments that are located about halfway up the block on the right-hand side, I guess on the southern side of Rural Retreat Road. And some are under construction. A number of them have been constructed, and I think may even be occupied by this time. And photograph number 6 is we move back down to University Drive. That is the Firestone Tire Store, which is immediately across the street from the subject property. It is across the street from the intersection of University and Rural Retreat. And photograph number 7 is a photograph of as much of that shopping area as I could possibly get with the lens that I had on the camera. So there's a lot more to that shopping center than meets the eye, but I think you get some idea. And those of you who have been there and shopped there, I think you understand what I'm talking about. Moving on to tab number 5. Excuse me. There are 2 letters here. One is a letter addressed to the City of Burlington, attention Joey Lee, and it's from Scott Smith. He is the grandson of Cleo Smith. This Smith lives on Rural Retreat Road, just behind, or just about behind, the subject property. And we learned early on that we needed to see if we could not garner that family's goodwill in connection with this rezoning process. And so I think the letter speaks for itself. However, I will tell you that the Smith family not only has agreed to support this rezoning, but they also would grant an easement, a utility easement over the property in order to serve the subject property. The last sheet in that tab is a letter which I sent to Michael A. Taylor, Mr. Michael A. Taylor, who lives on Rural Retreat Road. He owns the house and mobile home that I featured in one of the photographs. And after discussing reaching out to neighbors and getting some advice from Mr. Lee, I wrote him this letter notifying him of the hearing and the rezoning and the hearing before the Planning and Zoning Commission. At this time, I would like to call Ms. Ashley Peace, who is the Director of Real Estate for Lidl. And I know that she would like to make some remarks about the company. And of course, she will answer the questions that I think she's allowed to answer that are not privileged or confidential information, but you can try.
Good evening. My name is Ashley Peace. I am Director of Real Estate for Lidl US. And I want to thank you so much for taking time to hear our rezoning case. And just a little background about Lidl. We are one of the largest retailers in the world. We operate in 27 countries in Europe with over 10,000 grocery stores. And this is our US expansion. So we are looking to build a grocery store, and we're excited to be part of the local community here in Burlington. And we are very busy throughout North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia, which is my territory. I have counterparts all up and down the East Coast, currently building grocery stores and planning for the development of our grocery stores. We're also very happy to be part of North Carolina's economy with our distribution center that is out of Graham, and that is going to be completed very soon. So we look forward to opening grocery stores and serving our local neighborhoods, and we would just hope that you would support our application for this rezoning. And I'm here for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Any questions from council?
Mr. Mayor, council, to summarize, we of course think that this is a good development. And I don't think we're trying to put a square peg in a round hole here. If you consider the location of this property on University Drive, the amount of conditional business zoning in very close proximity and its close proximity to the interstate, it seems to be a pretty good fit for this particular area, and I think it will serve the community well. In reading the staff report, I found a sentence or so that seems to sum up this case more eloquently than perhaps I could, and I'd like to quote from the staff report. This area of University Drive has transitioned into a commercial corridor. The conditional business zoning designation is consistent with the comprehensive land use plan and is consistent with the land uses in the area. So I respectfully ask that you approve this rezoning. I think it will be an asset to the community, and I urge you to do so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy to answer any questions.
I think we'll have another round for questions after the public hearing.
Yes, sir.
So this is a public hearing. If anyone on this side of the room would like to speak. If anyone on this side of the room would like to speak. Do I hear a motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Are there questions from council, or do I hear a motion?
Do we have to send this back to P and Z for the new conditions for the walking track? What was just add to it?
Mr. Fawcett, I believe that the way this conditional zoning works is basically an offer to the city council of just an additional condition. And frankly, I don't consider it substantial since it was already planned for a sidewalk there. Anyway, it just widened it, I think, from 6 feet, if I'm not mistaken, to either 8 or 10 feet. It's in the form of an offer to the city council to accept as a condition or not.
Other questions from council?
Ms. Nelson, with some of the requirements that are not being met for the Western Loop overlay in the document that you provided, are any of those give city staff concern, any of those a major variance from what's in the area?
I don't think there's anything that's going to be a major issue.
Councilmember Ward, do you have any questions regarding?
No.
Okay.
I just want to say that I appreciate this extra condition, because I think it continues that path to allow people to use bicycles and walking. And it makes a difference to me that it's making that connection. And so I'd like to move that we approve the rezoning.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor of approving the rezoning, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Did we close the public hearing and come back?
Yep. Yeah.
David was talking.
You did get to vote on that.
Throw
though.
David under the bus, that's it.
So motion is passed. I'd ask Kathy, would you mind?
I move that we approve the statement of consistency. The city council finds that the above amendment is consistent with the City of Burlington Comprehensive Land Use Plan, and that this action is reasonable and in the public interest, in that the amendment is compatible with existing land uses in the vicinity and reflects the changing land use patterns in the area.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor of the statement of consistency, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? This moves us to item 2. A public hearing has been set to consider an application to rezone from I-1 Planned Industrial District. Thank you all for coming. We appreciate your support for our community. Item 2, a public hearing has been set to consider the application to rezone from I-1 Planned Industrial District to CR Conditional Residential District to allow construction of a 3-story, 32-unit apartment complex with a 6-bay garage and exercise room. The property is located at 1041 Cedar Crest Drive, references Alamance County Tax Identification Number 133126. This time, council recognizes Amy Nelson.
Thank you again. This request is for construction of an apartment complex, which will add both to the housing options and the mix of uses already in the area. It will replace a non-conforming mobile home park, and the project has been approved through the city's Technical Review Committee. This rezoning request has the recommendation of staff. The Planning and Zoning Commission voted unanimously to recommend the request to council. The commission found that the rezoning will not adversely affect the adjoining property, is in keeping with land uses already in the area, and that it is consistent with the comprehensive land use plan. Mr. Jerry Parker is here to speak to this request.
Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Jerry Parker. I live at 6805 Palomino Ridge Court, Summerfield, North Carolina. And as you can see, I'm proposing to construct some apartments at Cedar Crest Drive. As she has stated, this is going before the Technical Review Committee. It was approved unanimously. This property is located adjacent to the Highway Patrol Station on Interstate 85. And it's also adjacent to the interstate itself. It's very visible. I think this would be a great property for multifamily housing. I think it would be compatible with all of the things that are already there. It would not create a whole lot of traffic because it's only going to be one building, only going to be 32 units. I did some financial analysis before constructing, before proposing the apartments. And even though there are a lot of apartments going up in the Burlington, Mebane area, I still found there to be anywhere from a 92% occupancy on up. I myself own apartments. I just built Kirkwood Place Apartments, which is about a mile south of these apartments. And they are doing pretty well. So that's what kind of prompted me to also look at building these apartments. The other thing is that any other apartment complexes that are coming are probably going to be a lot larger than this one. Like I said, this is only just one building. It's only 32 units. I do not think it's going to add significantly to the apartment rentals in the Burlington area because it's very small compared to all the others. A lot of these other complexes that are coming are 10 buildings, some of them 200 to 300 units. Like I said, I'm only claiming one building, only 32 units. The apartments, as she stated, are going to be replacing a mobile home lot that's not in compliance. There are 4 trailers on the lot right now. Only one of them is occupied. The other 3 are, I don't believe, fit to be occupied. I think the construction of some new apartments there would be a considerable upgrade to this lot, and I think would be an advantage for the community as well as everyone else in that surrounding area. Also, I want to point out that 11 of the 32 units that I'm proposing are going to be 1-bedroom units. I found that it seems that the market for apartments in the Burlington area, 1 bedrooms are very underutilized. So I plan to at least add something to that market for 1-bedroom apartments. But most of these other ones are 2- and 3-bedroom apartments. I believe that is it. Except to say that I do have experience in this multifamily apartments. This is not something that's totally new to me. I think I've built some pretty nice apartments before. I plan to do the same for these. I just ask for your approval.
Questions from council?
I've got one. Are you gonna do anything with the curb, or the curb's gonna stay there? The curb from the street there? Just gonna leave that there and just build on the property?
Yes, I believe so. I'm not sure. I've turned in this to the technical review committee.
Yeah.
And if it's not curved on there, then no, I'm not planning on putting it on there.
No, there's a curve in the street. What I
Oh,
meant to
you
say.
mean curb?
Yeah.
I thought you said curb.
Yeah, I'm sorry, just my southern accent.
Sorry. No, we spoke with the Department of Transportation. What we did for that was we moved the driveway further down. And we couldn't do anything with the curb.
Yeah.
But in order to appease the DOT and lessen the traffic impact, the driveway was moved further down.
So you could possibly the same driveway that the highway patrol station used to go in and out, or just
No.
widen?
No, it would be
Cut.
different driveway.
Okay. All right.
Any other questions from council? Thank you. This is a public hearing. If anyone from this side of the room would like to speak. Anyone from this side of the room? Do I hear a motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Public hearing is closed. Any further questions from council? Or do I hear a motion?
Mayor, move we approve the rezoning.
Second.
So making a motion to approve the statement of consistency. City Council finds that the above amendment is consistent with the City of Burlington's comprehensive land use plan, and that this action is reasonable and in the public interest, and that the amendment is compatible with existing land uses in the vicinity and reflects the change in land use pattern in the area.
Okay, hearing a motion and a second to approve the rezoning. All those in favor of the rezoning, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. And the motion regarding the statement of consistency, do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor of approving the statement of consistency, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Statement of consistency is approved. Thank you very much. Moves us to new business. Item 3, City Council will consider approving Budget Amendment 2017-23 for the Community-Oriented Policing Services Hiring Grant as spelled out in your agenda. This time, council recognizes Captain Chad Saul.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Thank you for the opportunity this evening to present to you our budget requests for 6 new officers through the community hiring program for community-oriented policing officers. This evening, as a review of the timeline for the grant, just I believe it was June 21st when Chief Smythe was here and presented on the possibilities of us applying for a community-oriented policing section hiring grant for up to 6 officers, or up to 5% of our workforce. We submitted that application after your approval on the 21st, getting the application in just in time on the 22nd, 23rd, and getting it in review for competition. I'm pleased to inform you tonight, as you already know, we were awarded that grant, and it totals approximately $980,000, close to $1 million. It's a really significant grant. Of that grant, there's a responsibility of the city to supply a 25% match with federal funding of 75%. Our plan with that money over the next 36 months is to reconstitute what we had before called the Community Crime Abatement Team, or what we called CCAT. This team is flexible. It's able to focus on problem neighborhoods, or not necessarily problem neighborhoods, but areas where we are receiving higher incidents of crime, violent crime. We would use that unit to deploy to those areas and focus on that type of activity and assist the neighborhood, assist the community members in bringing down those crime statistics and addressing problems that they're experiencing and improving the quality of life in those areas. With this unit, we will establish them within our Criminal Investigations Division under the command of Captain Brett Taylor, working alongside our Violent Crimes Unit, our Domestic Violence Unit, Special Victims Unit. Having those units working together would be a huge benefit for the city and helping to quell some of the problems that we may experience. We feel very fortunate in receiving this grant. As you may know, in 2010, we applied for a similar type grant in which we received a little over $800,000 in supplying 6 officers for the city. So going into this grant, it's questionable, are we going to actually be considered after having just received a grant in 2010? And obviously the answer was yes, and proudly we received that grant, this current grant, as one of the top agencies in the state of North Carolina, of those receiving the grants. There were 8 other agencies that received similar type grants this year, and they score each agency on their application process. Our score was a 143.5, which is the highest of the 8 agencies, and that ranged from a 135 range up to the 143, meaning that we met the objectives of the grant requirements and are able to fulfill those responsibilities, or that's what the Department of Justice feels confident in us in doing. I think another consideration in us being so fortunate in receiving this current grant is our fiscal responsibility demonstrated with the 2010 hiring grant. It's a very detailed process, if you will, when you deal with the federal government and you're reporting federal funds and how they're used and when they're used. And I know that Ms. Reese can testify that when dealing with those funds, it's cross your T's and dot your I's 2 or 3 times, because they're going to come back and review everything that you do. So we feel that through the financial responsibility of the previous grant, along with the objectives that we submitted in this current grant application, is what helped us to arrive at this point in receiving nearly $1 million to assist our city in funding 6 new officer positions. The timeline, basically, the grant award starts a month ago, September 1, 2016, and will end August of 2019. However, that doesn't mean that we immediately start submitting for reimbursements for officer salaries. We expect that our timeline will be like this. We're going to hire 6 new officers to attend the ACC BLAT program that will begin in January of next year. And we predict that school will be completed by June of 2017. Once those 6 new officers graduate that school, we will place them in an officer orientation program within our police department's training program, and then they will be deployed for their field training requirement. After field training, we expect that those officers will be fully deployed for a solo status by October of 2017, meaning that we can begin our reimbursement request after the first quarter is completed in 2017 with the federal government. the CCAT officers will not be deployed until probably around that same time period in which these new officers complete their training in October of 2017. So at this point, I'll take any questions that you may have, or is there any other information I can provide?
Any questions from council?
I tried to keep it within 3 minutes, sir.
Covered a lot of information in that.
So
Yes.
the term of the grant starts in September and runs for 3 years.
Yes, sir.
But we're not going to be drawing from the grant immediately. So will the term expire before we're able to take advantage of all the funds?
No, sir. We will be able to take full advantage of the full amount by making requests to extend our grant award date. So going into this, knowing that we're going to be about 2 quarters behind the game in the reimbursements, at the end of the current 36-month period, 90 days prior to that, we'll submit an extension request to the federal government to extend our end date.
Are we
So we
guaranteed
can
to
take-
receive that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. As long as we employ those officers and we meet the obligations of the grant.
Sure. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other question?
What happened with the grant that was 2010? How long did that run?
It was very similar. It was a 3-year period, and like this grant, after that 3-year period, the city is obligated to a post-1-year obligation of continuing full employment to those officers. And then at the end of that 1 year, the city can either continue employment or release as to what their financial situation will allow them to do. And we continue to employ those officers from the original COPS grant.
So you got 6 new officers, and you got 5 slots and 1 you're holding for me. I'll take it.
You keep shooting for it.
You want to respond? You want to respond to that? No, should not.
Any other questions from council?
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a motion regarding the budget request?
I make a motion that we approve the budget amendment 2017-23 for the Community-Oriented Policing Service Hiring Grant based on the documentation that was provided.
Second.
Thank you.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Budget amendment has passed. Thank you very much. We have no public comments as issued for tonight. This moves us to city council comment.
Doing something.
I'd like to remind everyone that early voting starts October 20th. The one-stop early voting location will be the Youth Services Building over in Graham at 210 West Elm Street. This is Fire Prevention Month, so we're running fire extinguisher training courses at our every Thursday from 6 to 7 p.m. Had the opportunity to go over and attend one of those earlier this month. Encourage folks to get out and try those. We have a Burlington Athletics fundraising event at Dick's Sporting Goods on October 22nd. Folks can make purchases, and those will help support athletic programs, and they can learn more about athletic programs in our city. We also have a fall foliage kayak tour on Lake McIntosh for those of you looking to get out and observe the leaves. They also provide donuts and coffee, and that is on October 29th. And I'm excited since I'm a runner. We have a No Frills 5K program for the runners out there. It's 5 5Ks, $5 a piece. And then, as mentioned earlier in the agenda, the Spooktacular is happening on October 28th. Folks can come downtown right outside of the lawn here at 3 p.m. on the 28th for those events. And lastly, Dark in the Park is October 29th from 5 to 9. Rides, games, food, and fireworks down at City Park. So encourage folks to check that out, and hopefully we'll have the haunted train rides as well, the 27th, 28th, and 29th. Any other council comments? All right.
Mayor,
Yeah.
the haunted train's not going to be operating this year.
Will unfortunately not be operating, but the rest of the activities on the 29th
The rest of the
will be.
activities
So,
will be, yes, sir.
all right. Awesome. All right, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next month.